Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, February 22nd. This is episode 97 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Make sure to please like and subscribe here on YouTube. Appreciate all of the support. As always, the NFL offseason rolls on. This is week 2 now of the offseason since the Super Bowl, 2 weeks since the Seahawks took down the Patriots in Super Bowl 60. We got the NFL Combine starting up this week, so look forward to that and all the news that'll come out of that as the draft starts to gain some steam here. We got free agency just a couple weeks away, so things are starting to pick up here in the NFL offseason, and we've already got some roster moves across the NFL to discuss today, so we'll dive into that. DiMari, lots to discuss. Off-season's here, and looking forward to today's show. How's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. First and foremost, some news that kind of hit the NFL world, shocked the NFL world yesterday with the passing of
Yes.
Rondale Moore. So condolences to his family. Very talented young receiver that, we both got a chance to watch back at college. Obviously, it's time in the NFL. So sorry to hear that news for, again, his family, and may he rest in peace. And check on your loved ones. That's what I'm going to say with that. Make sure you check on the loved ones. You never know what anyone's going through. But, other than the news that broke yesterday, which was unfortunate, it's been a pretty decent week so far as some other news that we're actually getting. Like, usually it's kind of slow, but we see guys are already kind of waiting for contracts. Kind of surprised franchise tags haven't picked up quite yet. Teams have them to the third, but usually we see those roll in fairly quickly. It's been an interesting week. Bears are moving to Indiana. Teams are getting new jerseys. This is how you know you're in off season. We got random news that hits your Twitter and you're excited for. But other than that, like you mentioned, some roster moves have already happened, kind of setting us up for today. So let's get into it.
Yeah, definitely condolences to Rondell Moore and his family for sure. Very talented young receiver. Obviously had a ton of success, like you said. Even going back to his college days at Purdue, had a lot of success there for them, and just 25 years old, gone way too young. So definitely want to start there for sure. Now we can, like you said, lots going on now. It's like you said, it's there's some certain off-season just nonsense, if you will, jerseys, the Bears and all that stuff, like you said, that goes on. But we do have some news out of Miami, and that is Tyreek Hill. We'll dive into that first. We'll also get into some other receivers. Mike Evans, where will he potentially land? What's next for him? We'll get to George Pickens, what his future in Dallas looks like, and we'll get to some running backs, Javonte Williams extension. We'll get to Breece Hall and what's next for him with the Jets. Is it with the Jets, or is he going to move on and go somewhere else? Franchise tag, transition tag, what's the deal there? So we'll dive into that as well. But we'll start with Tyreek Hill. Dolphins earlier in the week released him, moving on from him after 4 seasons. Last season, as we know, had that gruesome injury, played just 4 games. And I don't think anybody should be too surprised by this with Tyreek Hill. The minute I think that season ended, the minute the injury happened, really, I think there was a lot of people that guessed that was probably his final snaps taken as a Miami Dolphin, and the lasting image that they'll have as the Miami Dolphins, in a Miami Dolphins uniform, I should say, was that gruesome injury. Because you look at where Miami is at and the season they had last year and where they're at just from an organizational standpoint, we all knew they were going to start moving on from some of these big names. They moved on from Bradley Chubb, Tyreek Hill now. So what are your thoughts on this move? I don't think much of a surprise, but anytime a player of Tyreek Hill's caliber gets released, it's something that catches your eye.
Yeah, no surprise at all. You said it perfectly. Once he went down the injury, you knew it was over with. I mean, it was already brewing before then, kind of the relationship that he kind of had with Tua and Mike McDaniel, So obviously it was time for him to go. And we just talked about it briefly off air here. It was time for him to blow it up as well. It got to the point where that core is just not going to get the job done. And not necessarily saying it starts with Tua, but when everything kind of started with, okay, should they move on from Tua? What's the direction of Tua? And then obviously what they did with Mike McDaniel. That showed you exactly what direction Miami was going in. And Tyreek Hill is just another piece of that puzzle. But kind of unfortunate for the talent that team had and the core that they had to not be able to win anything. But hey, that's part of the business, and I think this is a great decision for him and for Miami to just separate.
Yeah, definitely. And when you look at just that Dolphins run as it kind of comes to a close now, it is very, I don't know, look back on it, very disappointing from the aspect of when you traded for Tyreek Hill, or not, yeah, traded for Tyreek Hill, what, 2022 now, I believe? Because, yeah, it's been 4 seasons. Your hope was that would potentially propel you to a Super Bowl, right? You give Tua another option, you pair him alongside Jalen Waddle, and you also go out and make the Bradley Chubb move, who also is now out the door, and everything else that Miami had going for them with Mike McDaniel, his first season. Like, this really is a new era we're entering into. But when you make that move for Tyreek Hill, the hope was compete for a Super Bowl, go out there and win the AFC East and build something sustainable, build something not only just sustainable, but also kind of a win now type of move. And you walk away, you have 2 wild card appearances. One of those was with Skylar Thompson up in Buffalo, where they almost actually won that game, but they lost. And then they had the really bad loss against Kansas City in the really freezing weather, where they didn't do anything offensively. And that was also the same year where they had the collapse. And that collapse, I think, is just another reminder in the AFC East of they haven't been right since that. Once that collapse happened where they blew the division lead, lost the final game of the season to the Buffalo Bills, and after that point, they followed it up with 8 wins in 2024. And then last year, we know, was the disaster with just 7 wins. You fire the GM, fire McDaniel, you bring in a new coaching staff, bring in a new general manager, and you start fresh with Jeff Hafley now leading the way as the new head coach and John Eric Sullivan taking over the GM job. So there's a lot of fixing that needs to do. And I guess we'll dive into Tyreek Hill and his landing spots too. But from Miami's perspective, what's the next move you feel now? You move on from Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb. It feels like it's just a complete teardown where you probably tank this season and there's a good chance you're drafting a quarterback in 2027 because you also have the Tua conversation and all this as well. There's not a decision yet on him yet. I think we all expect him potentially to be moved on from, but the contract, the ramifications is a really bad contract. Who is under center for them this year? Do they maybe go out and get a Malik Willis because he has the connection with Sullivan and Hafley from Green Bay? Just what he feels next for Miami.
Whew. There's so many options. Like, I don't know what to pick, and a lot of those options lean towards tanking. I mean, we talked about it last episode with kind of some of the landing spots for some quarterbacks. So obviously we both mentioned Tua being gone, maybe Kyler Murray to Miami. But if you're Miami, what do you want to do? Do you want to bring in a Kyler Murray, which it's probably going to be a guy you bring in hopes to muster up some wins and then kind of build around him? Or do you bring in a bridge like Malik Willis, or we're going to thought of Marcus Mariota, just some names we mentioned last week? Are you going to bring in that bridge quarterback and then going into next year, a extremely loaded quarterback class? I think that's the best bet. I honestly think so. Like, I don't think you bring in or do like a Kyler for Tua swap, whatever the case is, because you want to kind of set yourself back. If you're Miami, I mean, you got to look for the next 4 or 5 years. And yes, Kyler Murray still is fairly young, kind of still in the midst of his prime. So, like, you want to be a bad shot to attempt it. But, I mean, I think if you are the Dolphins right now, you've separated from this core. You still have some good pieces of that core in Waddle and A-Chain if they decide not to move on. I think you just kind of tank it for this year. You go with a bridge. You see what you get out of year one of your head coach. And then going into next year, you draft well, you draft the quarterback. And again, the quarterback class is so loaded. Like, if you, not saying all those guys are going to pan out to be all pros, but if you, swing and miss in next year's QB draft, you might have a problem as far as player development. I think you kind of just look forward to 27 and, you go from there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, too, when you look at Miami and just their offseason in general, you only have $3 million in cap space, which is the lowest among the teams that are actually under the cap. The teams behind them are all over the cap. Packers, Bears, Texans, Saints, Lions, Chiefs, Bills, Jags, Cowboys, and Vikings are dead last. So out of all the teams that are under the cap, they have the least amount of money. So it's not like this is a one-year solve type of thing where you can spend a ton of money. And that's the whole point of moving on from Tyreek Hill is the team saves about $70 million in cap space because of the contract. He signed the 4-year, $120 million extension. He then restructured that in 2024, which pushed the guaranteed money, which was about $106.5 million, back. And then now I think it's he was still carrying about a $51.1 million cap hit for this season. And that guaranteed money was the most by a skill position player in NFL history when you factor in running backs, all that stuff. From Tyreek Hill's standpoint, because I agree, Dolphins, this is a full tank. This is a full rebuild. I agree. The whole Kyler Murray for Tua exchange, I think we talked about this last week, who would actually win that deal, Arizona and I think we both agreed that I don't think either of us could see Tua going on the road in Seattle, going on the road in San Fran, LA, any of the road destinations in that division, and picking up a win, let alone even hosting those teams. But what's Kyler going to bring? 7-8 wins?
Yeah.
So I agree with that. That's like a 1-year Band-Aid of 8 wins where you're not going to be good enough to get a high draft pick. You just need to tank, play it out, give Quinn Ewers an opportunity. Yeah. Who knows? Best case scenario, maybe he turns into something, right? Maybe you get something out of him where he can at least be maybe a long-term backup. But like you said, they've still got some pieces. Now, in terms of Tyreek Hill and his future, we were talking about this a little bit off air. It's kind of tough to find some landing spots for him. I guess I'll start with this. Do you believe he still has a lot left in the tank, or do you think we've seen – I think we all agree we've probably seen the last of elite level play from Tua, but he's not going to be the cheetah he was from 22, 23, the years he had with Kansas City. But can he still be a very good to maybe just below elite receiver, or do you feel the injury only getting older, the performance he was having last year prior to the injury, even 2024, his numbers took a massive drop off. It was the first time in 3 years he didn't have over 100 receptions. Now you want to pinpoint some of that on Tua, fine, but where do you feel Tyreek Hill rather is at in his career?
I think he still has some juice. Obviously, coming back from the injury is going to be tough, but you talk about the numbers, and I'm going to be that guy. It was a quarterback. It was all the quarterback. It just wasn't good enough play. So I think when he comes back, if he can kind of take that step back wherever these landing spots may be and realize, hey, you're going to be more of a 2. We're not going to really consider you a 1, and he won't have that same production that he had as a 1. If he's willing to take that, back place role, I honestly think he can still be a 1,000-yard receiver. And I'm right there with you. He's not going to be the same dominant cheetah that we've seen, but I still think he can elevate a lot of wide receiver rooms throughout the league.
Yeah, 100%. And even if he goes out there and gives you similar to what he gave you in 2024, that's borderline wide receiver 1 numbers. Arguably wide receiver 1 numbers, depending on which team he gets placed on, which team he goes to. He had 81 receptions that season for 959 yards. Slightly better quarterback play, and you're looking at probably 90-plus receptions, over 1,000 yards again in that 2024 season. I feel like the most obvious landing spot's probably Kansas City.
Yeah.
Is you feel the Kansas City reunion is brewing?
I think so. I think it works in his favor with Kansas City, where everything is just kind of up in the air. Everything's question marks. Who's going to be there? Who won't? I honestly think, a return back is probably the best bet for him.
Yes. I think when you look at, I guess how to phrase this, which side would need each other the most? I think Tyreek Hill going back to Kansas City and pairing back up with Patrick Mahomes would be very big at this point in his career for him. And then when you look at the Chiefs, they desperately need help, and they're also in a very weird spot just organizational-wise. You're coming off of a 6-11 season where you don't have a ton of cap space-wise. You're in a tough spot. I just labeled they're one of the plenty of teams that are over the cap. You've got some other roster decisions to make. So bringing in help at the receiver position, which they desperately need, plus the unknown around Travis Kelce and his future in the NFL, Tyreek Hill would be an obvious fit. Also kind of rekindle the previous Mahomes-Hill duo. I'll throw another one out here. I think if we had to make both prediction, we'd probably both pick the Chiefs. Not only because it makes sense, but it also just seems like it's probably going to happen. We talk about this team, I think anytime a wide receiver hits the market, staying in the AFC's the Bills. They're another team. where do you feel the Bills potentially fall?
Probably 3. I put another team above the Bills. I put the Chargers at 2, right above the Bills. And I know, obviously, the Chargers are kind of not necessarily loaded at receiver, but they can use some receiver help. And I know that playoff run wasn't necessarily just the receivers not being good; it was the offensive line. But Tyreek Hill, I think, again, can upgrade any wide receiver room. So I put Chargers at 2. But for the sake of Buffalo, yeah, I mean, you need a receiver desperately. We talk about that. That's probably our most, talking about subject. If we're being honest, if someone was to look up on Google probably any topics, we go over more than anything is Buffalo and the need for a receiver. So if you're Tyreek Hill, you kind of you stay in the AFC East, which we see this often, not as often maybe as we think we would, but players kind of like that sense of giving the middle finger to their old organization, depending on how things kind of ended. So for Tyreek Hill and the way things in Miami ended, I mean, the guy was celebrating and he snapped his leg in half and wasn't going to be in the uniform anymore. I think that says a lot how he felt about, being in Miami. So just to be able to play your former team 2 times a year, and you're going to be competitive. I mean, you have Josh Allen, you have James Cook, you have 2 very good tight ends. Like Tyreek Hill, hey, worst case, we win, 10 games? At worst, you're going to be competitive. You're going to be playing in the playoffs with the quarterback a shot at 2 in here. That can't play in the cold. So you are probably going to get very far. If I am Tyreek Hill, I love that destination for him to go to Buffalo.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely Josh Allen and Tua. It's not even close in terms of the cold weather play one, but just overall play as well. And yeah, I mean, that's another thing too. Like you look at where he's at. Like, you want to go to a team with a very high floor. Buffalo is that team where even without him, they're a 11-12 win team at least, right? Without him. You add him to the mix, and you're looking at they won 12 games this year, and that was kind of a down year for them. You add them to the mix, and at least they're a 10-11 win team still. Yeah. At the very least, with him, they may be a game or 2 better because you look at the receivers they're rolling out there. I mean, it's Khalil Shakir, Josh Palmer, Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman stinks. And Brandon Cooks, who was picked up off the side of the street, actually had some moments.
Yeah.
But these guys aren't like we're talking about Tyreek Hill. Brandon Cooks, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir are not in the same world of Tyreek Hill. You tell me Bills go out and add a Tyreek Hill or add a Justin Jefferson, that's huge. I guess who would be more likely, Justin Jefferson or Tyreek Hill? And I'll throw another team out there too.
That's tough. I mean, Jefferson, we know he wants out of Minnesota, but
he has the Brady connection.
He has the connection, but for Tyreek Hill, obviously Jefferson, you're going to have to send some picks. Like it's going to cost you a pretty penny. For Tyreek Hill, it's kind of more of a hey, just come sign over.
Put
let's get this done. With the injury, so you're Buffalo and you are looking long term. I mean, Josh Allen's 29? 28, if I'm correct, somewhere up there. So if you're Buffalo, you're just like, we need to win now. We don't know how much longer we have of elite Josh Allen. So if you're looking to win right now, you probably go Justin Jefferson. And I know that sounds kind of backwards with Tyreek Hill being obviously older, but if you want to win right now, someone that's going to give you immediate impact, you go Justin Jefferson. If you're like, hey, and that's also going to help you win in the future, of course. He's going to be there for some time. But if it's going to be kind of let's sign a guy, let's wait till he gets back, hey, we can be patient until he's healthy, then you go the Tyreek Hill option. But I think you trade for Jefferson if it comes down to it.
Yeah, and I also would say that Jefferson's just better.
Yeah.
In terms of, now you'd have to give up the assets, of course. Tyreek Hill, you wouldn't. But there's pros and cons to both, giving up the assets as opposed to Tyreek Hill, where you essentially just put pen to paper. The one thing I will say, I'm very curious on what happens with Tyreek Hill in 2026 because, when he returns, because his agent said that he intends to be ready for the start of the season, which I doubt that's happening. Probably October earliest, realistically?
Yeah, that was a nasty
Maybe, I mean,
injury.
because that's a year because his injury happened September 29th.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's like about exactly a year because ACLs now, like a regular torn Achilles, a regular torn ACL or whatever, those take about, they're a little less than a year now. Guys will come back earlier than a
Yeah.
year. His injury was so bad, though, it's probably closer to a year, maybe a little more than that.
Yeah.
I don't think you can expect Tyreek Hill to come back and play all 17 or come back and play all 17 at his best. Like if he does come back and he is ready for week 1, you have to expect him to be probably not himself, not exactly the cheetah until October, November,
Yeah.
realistically. That's even if he plays that early. But yeah, I mean, you make a good point with Allen. He's 30 years old now. They got to start winning. He's going to be 30 years old in May. So like we've hit the point where with the Bills where it's like Josh Allen's he doesn't have 1 year left, but like we've got to the point with Buffalo, not to make this about Buffalo because I do have another team about Tyreek Hill and we can move on to these other receivers, but we've gotten to a point with Buffalo where it's kind of put up or shut up. Like Allen's going to be 30 years old.
Yeah.
you just changed the coach. You know, forever it was McDermott. Forever it was, we got to fire McDermott. You change the coach. You bring in Joe Brady. You don't bring in Joe Brady. You promote Joe Brady. Like it's kind of now or never for them. Time's ticking on that Bills team. Now, in terms of one other team I'll throw out here, and I wrote this down with kind of a question mark because I don't really know if it's that realistic, but it's, I guess, kind of a fun team to think of. The Niners. And the reason I throw San Fran out there is they don't really have a legitimate number one. They kind of going by committee. Now you had the Kittle injury. He'll miss the part of the season. We all know what happened with Ayuk. You obviously have CMC. We all know how dangerous he is. But wide receiver wise, like Ricky Pearsall showed a little bit. You have Juwan Jennings, but they could use some help.
A division with JSN, Puka, Devontae Adams. You throw Tyreek Hill in that mix. It feels like a long shot. That's a
Yeah.
possibility. I don't see why San Fran's not afraid to bring in talent. We know that. And you throw Tyreek Hill in that offense with Shanahan and Brock Purdy, they can make some things shake. And you mentioned it with Brandon Ayuk, who honestly they got. I don't even want to talk about him. I don't want to talk about him. That's another time for Brandon Ayuk. But you got Ricky Pearsall, like you said, who is I don't think he's wide receiver one worthy. I mean, he had some flashes, he had some moments. It's the injuries though. He's injured, so he's not on the field enough. So obviously, and we're talking about Tyreek Hill here, who's coming off of major injury. But if you are, the Niners and you're looking at it like, hey, if we can stay competitive with what we got, because their guys step up when they need their guys to step up.
Yep.
So, hey, if you can keep us competitive, you can keep us a game and a half or a game out of the division, at that moment, and Tyreek Hill gets back, we can, they can make a run. They can make a push. So,
Yeah.
honestly, I think it's a very great move. If you are San Fran and you need Ricky Pearsall to stay healthy. So if Ricky Pearsall can stay healthy and those other guys around him can continue to, other guys around Brock Purdy can continue to step up and be efficient when needed, you put Tyreek into that system where he has time, because obviously he's not going to be playing, nothing but time to learn that offense, build some chemistry with this coach, with this quarterback, obviously in practice. That can be a scary team. I like that. I like that landing spot.
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, I don't know how realistic it is. I don't really know if San Francisco sees Tyreek Hill right now and absolutely says, we need him.
Yeah.
Right? The Bills he's got to be on the radar because they need help. Like any receiver that becomes available, the Bills, I'm sure they're going to at least entertain the possibility. The Chargers I also like because of the potential McDaniel combination, which is like you mentioned. That in that offense, we know it could work. So that'll be very interesting. So we both throw two West teams out here, and we throw an East team into the mix. So we've got almost all covers. We've almost got all areas covered. Like We got an AFC East team. We got 2 AFC West teams. We got an NFC West team. We just need like a North and a South. I don't know. I don't know who from the North or the South would take him. Maybe.
Does he go to Green Bay? I mean, Romeo Dobbs is kind of out.
That's a good point.
Romeo Dobbs is
talk about quarterback play though.
Yeah, that's the that's the only thing. Like, hey, you went from Tua to
Jordan Love.
Love.
How do we compare? It's like Tua to like Jordan Love's a fancier version of Tua.
That's basically it. If Tua is like if Tua is like going to McDonald's to get a burger, Jordan Love is just Five Guys. It's just a little more, it's just a little more
like In-N-Out or something.
Fancy. Yeah. It's a little bit of an upgrade, but you're still gonna have your occasional times you go get the food and you're just like, oh, this is trash. That's Jordan Love for you.
Yeah, well, that's good. It'd be Five Guys. Jordan Love or Tua's the McDonald's, the Burger King. Jordan Love's the Five Guys. So if Tyreek Hill wants that low of an upgrade, then Green Bay. But just to close out on the San Francisco point, it'd be very intriguing. Now, there's a good chance Kittle and Hill wouldn't start the season, but you weather the early storm and you get those guys healthy. Like CMC, Tyreek Hill, Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle, that's disgusting. There's no other way to put it. Now, they got to stay healthy. And heck, putting Tyreek Hill next to the power plant or whatever it is might not be the best idea at this point, but I guess that's where we're at. You see the thing on Twitter. I don't know if it was real or not, but the place that they're playing in Mexico, like there's a substation near it.
I did not see that.
I don't know if that was like an edit or if that was just like a meme, like if somebody photoshopped it or whatever, or AI, like a map. I should actually look into that, but I'm like, the coincidence.
If that is true, that it's just no way. At that point, that's malpractice. Like, there's no way you purposely. Well, there's no way you pick that to be the spot.
Yeah, for the night. Of all the games they could play over, or all the games they could play out of the country. Yeah. Anyway, all right, let's move on. So we move on now. Tyreek Hill. We'll head on over to let's start with Mike Evans, and we'll dive into the Cowboys stuff. Mike Evans feels like I have to ask. Did you see the Jason McIntyre? Mike Evans never sniffed a ring in Tampa.
Well, no, I did not.
You didn't see that? Terrible. He goes, I forget where he had Mike Evans going to, as a free agent. Obviously, I forget where he had him signing, but he had him going somewhere that had a chance of winning a Super Bowl. He goes, he never sniffed one in Tampa. So
did I? Hold on.
Or it was something. He never sniffed a ring or never sniffed a Super Bowl. Something along those lines.
Did we just forget about?
I know.
Did we just forget that Tom Brady literally was there and okay?
Just forgot. Hey. And the crazy part is they have Brady on the show like all the time because he's obviously with Fox. So it's like, how do you have Brady on the show all the time and it just say, "Oh, Mike Evans never got a ring"?
Okay.
It's a little disrespectful to the Bucs organization.
That just goes to show you. Some of the on-air people, some of those people they find and put on air.
Yes. I don't know where they find them.
That says a lot.
Yes. I don't know where they find them, and I don't know how they get on air. But I guess they do somehow. Either way, in all seriousness, Mike Evans, free agent, coming off a season where he was banged up. First time in his NFL career where he did not surpass 1,000 yards, dating back to 2014 up until 2024. He was about as consistent as they come in terms of production year in and year out. 70 plus, 80 plus receptions year in and year out. Always a 1,000 plus wide receiver type of player. And touchdown machine too. He's had a lot of double-digit touchdown seasons. There's a lot of those red zone, one-on-one corner of the end zone, kind of back shoulder balls that he does a really good job of. A lot of those 50-50 kind of turn those into 80-20 balls. At 32 years old, though, free agent, and there's some questions around his future in Tampa. What are your thoughts on – it's crazy to think, actually, Mike Evans – I wrote this down. I'll share it now, but I saw this graphic a couple weeks ago from Fox about it. Mike Evans, it's crazy. He has more 1,000-yard seasons than Tim Brown, Jimmy Smith, T.O., Larry Fitz, and Randy Moss. He's only behind Jerry Rice, which is crazy because I've always felt that Mike Evans was very underrated. A lot of that did come from his time in Tampa, where prior to the Super Bowl, they were not very good. Especially the Winston years. It was a lot of just 400 yards, 4 interception games where they'd lose them because Winston is a turnover machine. But very underrated because he's not a guy that's going to go out there and put up 1,700, 1,800 yards and have these 100-plus reception seasons, but he's just very consistent. So what are your thoughts on where he's at now and kind of Tampa? Is he back? What do you feel is the Mike Evans situation?
Oh, it's kind of hard when you see a guy that spent all his time with one organization move on. And for Tampa's sake, just for that division, I mean, I don't think Mike Evans should lead Tampa. That's kind of just me. I know this was a down year in terms of just everything, the expectations, but we talk about this one quite frequently as well. That division is not very good. So you can win that division very easily. And I think for Tampa, you got to look at the injuries, man. Like Mike Evans being the main one, injured. Yep. A lot of what you kind of leaned on last year was Emeka Egbuka because, Chris Godwin's kind of getting back to form. Bucky Irvin was injured. So you're relying on Rachaad White, who's still a very solid two-back, but you don't have your guys out there. Baker dealing with injuries. Yeah. Yep. So if you're Tampa, I mean, you kind of got to kind of take last season with a grain of salt and realize where some things went wrong. I think you run it back. I think you re-sign Mike Evans. I mean, this is still a very, very good football team where I think everyone healthy, they run away with that division. Easily, we're talking about 11, 12 wins. That division is theirs. I just think if they look forward to moving Mike Evans, it's almost kind of like, I don't want to say necessarily waving the white flag, but if Mike Evans is not in a Bucs uniform next season, that tells me they're in the kind of the phase, that first early phase of like, if things don't work out, we might try to blow it up. I think you got to run it back.
Yeah. So you mean if Evans goes, that's a sign of potentially them starting the early stages of blowing it up or retool, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I could see it. You think he's back? I still think he is because even a couple years ago, well, he was only a 2-year contract. I remember a lot of people saying, "Oh, is he going to come back? What's going to happen?" And he ended up going back to Tampa because that was, I believe, he signed that 24.
Yeah.
So no, my dates are a little off, but I do remember that there was a lot of people like hinting at going to other teams, and he ended up going back to Tampa. I still think he probably ends up back in Tampa if I had to put a prediction on it.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys that, I mean, again, you've been with the organization for so long. You love the organization. You love the city. Obviously, him and Baker, work well together. I think he stays.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that feeling as well. And look, I think his importance and his absence was really magnified with what happened last year with Tampa, where they got all so banged up, even down to the run game, like you said. But after a while, Egbuka started to slow down a bit. Yeah. And I'm not saying that that's the type of player he is, but he got off to the really, really hot start where it looked like he was running away with Rookie of the Year, and then he completely disappeared towards the end of the season. Godwin, of course, wasn't 100% healthy. Baker obviously was super banged up the entire season, and that showed in his play. So I just think the impact of Mike Evans not being there was a lot of times you could feel a player's true impact when he's not out there. And for Mike Evans, he's been so consistent, especially in terms of availability, where he plays a ton up until really this year. I think the loss of him, the impact and the loss there was really evident with the way things went in the season, missing the playoffs in an incredibly weak NFC South, like you said. And then the receivers that they had, there was some success, but it wasn't sustained. It wasn't consistent. It was guys in and out of the lineup. Egbuka, who started the year really strong, tailed off at the end. You had Sterling Shepard had to play a little bit of a bigger role. Like he had, you were really kind of digging at that point, especially with Godwin only playing I think it was 9 games. And then Evans obviously with the 8. Like Tez Johnson is not your number 2. In a perfect world, he's probably a number 4 behind Evans, Godwin, Ibuka, or Ibuka 2, Godwin 3, however you want to throw it out there. But I think he should be back. And I agree with your sentiment, too, that if he's not back, you kind of have a hard time envisioning this Tampa team being like this for much longer, because that's like one piece of this core that'll be gone. And also, I throw in Todd Bowles' status, too. Is this it for him? Like, if they win 8 games again and miss the playoffs in a NFC South, that's incredibly weak. And I know some people look at it and say, oh, Stefanski's now in Atlanta, Bryce Young. We'll see if he takes another step, they'll be dangerous. But still, this is not a division this isn't the NFC North. This isn't the AFC West even, or the NFC West. Like, this is one of the weaker divisions in the NFL still, even with those other factors. You keep Mike Evans, you're still going to be right in the conversation. You move on from him, you don't bring him back. I don't think it's crazy to say that they'll miss the playoffs, and you're going through a coaching change, and you have to really start having conversations about the future of this team. If he doesn't go return to Tampa, what are some destinations in your opinion?
Think this one's a no-brainer. I think we all know we're going with this one. Up to Buffalo. I mean, it has to be Buffalo again. Not even gonna go on the whole spilling in it, but similar to Tyreek Hill, I think the team gets better with Mike Evans compared to Tyreek Hill. If we're being so honest, you give Josh Allen a big body receiver, a consistent receiver. I think he goes to Buffalo. I think, again, worst case for Mike Evans, who dealt with, you mentioned it, some time not winning a lot of football games. You go to Buffalo, you're an instant contender. You have a great quarterback that is going to feed you the ball. And I know you look back at the time with Stephon Diggs and kind of how their relationship, but Stephon Diggs is more like, give me the ball. I need the ball. I want the ball. Mike Evans kind of go with the flow like, hey, I'm open. Throw me the ball. I'm going to make some plays happen. And Josh Allen will succeed with a guy like that. I think Buffalo is a great spot for Mike Evans.
Yes, I agree. And I think, honestly, if you and I threw our hat in the ring, we'd be connected to Buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we went out for whatever, I don't even know how we enter the league, but,
That's how desperately they need help at receiver.
Yes.
That's what that's saying.
Totally agree. Any team connected, any receiver that's good, not even necessarily good, but just a receiver, they're going to be connected to Buffalo.
Yeah.
And I agree. This one makes a lot of sense. Mike Evans, same thing along the lines of Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, all these guys. He walks into the door as the number 1 option, and you give Josh Allen a big-time weapon that he needs. So I totally agree. Another one I'll throw out there, too. We talked about it. I threw him on this list. The Kansas City Chiefs. They're also kind of in the Buffalo category of this offseason, at least. A lot of receivers that are out there. Maybe not Justin Jefferson, but I feel like Jefferson's more of a Bills thing. I don't see Jefferson ending up in Kansas City. I could be wrong. But Mike Evans, I could see it happening. They obviously need a lot of help. We just talked about the whole questions around Kelsey. We talked about the lack of receiver play in general over there. They could use some upgrades. Same thing with Rashee Rice, the off-the-field problems as well. They're over the cap. So Mike Evans is a name to watch there. Any other teams on your list? I think probably best fit is probably Buffalo, honestly. Especially just the way he plays. Like, I think a one-on-one, that jump ball, physical type receiver like Mike Evans would actually bode very well with Allen. I could be wrong, but red zone threat.
Yeah, I had those are the 3 spots I had: Tampa, Buffalo, Kansas City. But I'm right there. I think Buffalo is the best fit just because Kansas City, obviously, with Mahomes, you don't know when his timetable is. But just imagine that offense of, Josh Allen being able to throw those jump balls like you just mentioned. and then everything 20 to 20 is where you have your Khalil Shakir, your Kincaid,
Yeah.
those type of guys to do the dirty work in the middle of the field, which Mike Evans is not afraid to go across the middle either. But inside the 20, Mike Evans is very dangerous, or that 30-yard line going in that fades to the back of the end zone. I think Josh Allen will excel. Both guys will excel with each other. So I think Buffalo will be the best fit, if not Tampa.
Yeah, I agree. And not to continue to add on to the Buffalo conversation, but I will say this too about the Bills. They're moving into a new stadium. They just got a new head coach. I don't want to say it's a new era, but it's kind of a little bit of a I don't know. It's like when you it's like painting your house. You didn't buy a new house, but you're making a little bit of upgrades, if that makes sense.
It's like a refresh. They kind of
like
just
a
had
refresh.
a refresh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the Diggs thing didn't work. The McDermott era, they never reached the mountaintop. The point I'm trying to make in all this is I feel like the Bills, with all of that, in consideration with, first of all, you have an offensive-minded coach now, Joe Brady, who I could see him kind of pounding the table and saying, give me and Josh a number one receiver to work with. But also, like, you're going into a new stadium, you got a new head coach, a little bit of a new era, kind of a refresh. That's the best way to put it. I could see them wanting to make a splash signing, wanting to make a bigger move to kind of get the fan base bought back in a little bit too, because I have one of my friends, actually, Bills fan, like, they're pretty down right now. I don't think a lot of them love the hire of Joe Brady. They wanted a new face, fresh vision. They didn't just, if you're going to fire McDermott, like, what's the point in promoting Brady? There's that real concern, Like, you have the owner talk about how the coaching staff screwed up the Keon Coleman draft pick, yet the offensive coordinator who oversaw that draft pick is now your head coach. Like, there's not a lot of sense. The Bills haven't made a ton of sense this offseason with these hires and their decision making, but the way to kind of get the fan base back involved would be a Tyreek Hill. I think Justin Jefferson would be the biggest one. You go trade for Jefferson, that'd get the fan base, really fired up. But Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill on a lesser level, not too much of a lesser level, but they would walk in day one. So I say all this to kind of bring into picture that I think the Bills are going to make a splash move. I do. In past off seasons, I didn't necessarily feel that, but I do see a world where Buffalo ends up with a Hill, an Evans, a Justin Jefferson, one of these guys, or maybe they make a surprise move. I don't know who that would be off the top of my head, but maybe they, go out and trade for another receiver that we haven't talked about, or, maybe Pickens.
We're not going that route. That's not happening if I have anything to do with it. I will not let that happen.
Yeah. I feel like that's it, though, right? The Bills, Chiefs. Another sneaky team I would throw into the mix is New England for receiver help. I don't necessarily know if they're going after the Mike Evans level, but they could use some extra juice.
Yeah.
Like, Diggs isn't the same player. He's got his, fair share of issues too off the field. Like, Kayshon Boutte's not anything to write home about. Like, Mac Hollins, they could. Again, I don't necessarily know if we're talking about Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill as your, or even like a Justin Jefferson, not those type of receivers for New England, but I could see them just upgrading at the position in general. Like, you look at the free agent wide receivers, to be honest, aren't great.
Yeah, it's not a good list.
Yeah, off the top of my head, like, thinking of some of them, they're not very good. Maybe like a Wan'Dale Robinson. He's kind of in that next tier of, it's like Jefferson, not out of just the free agent, just out of the receivers in general.
Yeah.
Maybe like Wan'Dale Robinson maybe would be a nice upgrade for New England, where he's not elite, but he provides some nice depth, if you will, at the position. So
there is There's a report that I saw, and I don't know how true it is. I should have looked into it. I don't know if you saw it, but apparently, if this is true, it's the Colts may be interested in moving on from Michael Pittman. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not see that.
And again,
That
I don't know how true it
Alec
is. I could have been
Pierce
entailed.
is another one. Alec Pierce, a name to watch. I have heard that in free agency. So that would be a name to keep an eye on as a potential upgrade for like New England or any of those teams. But Michael Pittman, no, I've not seen that. That's intriguing though.
Hey, I should have looked into it. Like I could have been entailed for all we know. But it was one of those things. I kind of saw it on my Twitter feed. I scrolled right past it. I'm like, this isn't happening.
I will
it
say
can't
from
be
a
true.
Jet fan perspective, I would be totally on board with potentially adding Michael Pittman. He also has a connection with Frank Reich. I just did look it up. There is articles on it.
Yeah, all right.
Pittman is currently on the books for $29 million, but the Colts could create $24 million in cap space if they release him before March 15th. So I guess it's more so.
If they want to play with the cap, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know. I don't want to call it like fan fiction, but I guess it's more like he could be a cap casualty if they want to add, like you said, play with it.
Yeah.
Get some little bit of a boost there. But it's an intriguing name to think of. Buffalo. Another name for you.
Absolutely. Right to Buffalo.
Yep. But yeah, I mean that could maybe be like the surprise trade would be Michael Pittman, or not the trade, but if he gets released, that could be. There's always some surprises, so we'll see. Anyway, we move on now to another wide receiver, and then we'll get to some running backs to close out the show. George Pickens. I'll let you start this one off. The floor is yours. What is your thoughts on George Pickens, his future in Dallas, future home in Buffalo? What are our thoughts?
Well, let me ask you this first and foremost. Would you pay George Pickens more than Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, let me check. What is Amon-Ra St. Brown making?
Wait, don't look at the numbers. Not yet.
Don't want to look at the numbers? Okay.
Not yet. Just would you pay him more than Amon-Ra St. Brown?
It's tough without the numbers. I mean,
that's tough.
Based off of last year's performance, he was better than Amon-Ra St. Brown, because I know off the top of my head his yards he was third, with over 1,400. So based off of last year, then yes.
All right, so that's a yes for you on that one. And obviously, this is a guy we just talked about a little bit that kind of just irked a nerve. And I'm assuming you would obviously pay him more than Brandon Ayuk as well.
Oh, 100% yes. Brandon Ayuk's a disaster. Yes. I would pay. You talking about Pickens more than Ayuk, right?
Yeah, Pickens more than Ayuk and Pickens more than Amon-Ra.
Yes, definitely more than Ayuk and Amon-Ra. Definitely more than Ayuk. Amon-Ra, I could definitely – I can understand it, yes.
Or at least close to Amon-Ra. If you're not going to pay him more, at least close, somewhere within the same percentage. Now you can look at the numbers, which I'm saying now anyways. You would pay George Pickens $30 million a year, which is what he's expecting, which is what he wants.
Yeah.
If I am Jerry Jones, I know the franchise tag option is out there. The franchise tag will give Pickens $28 million a year. Jerry, give him the 30. Give him the 30. I mean, I keep seeing these hypotheticals of, trading him to the Raiders for Max Crosby. And it's just like, you ever seen I don't know if it's a somersault. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like the balance beam where you got two people on one side and they balance each other out. One person hops off and it goes like this. And it, vice versa, it goes like this. Yep. If you get rid of George Pickens right now, it's just your offense goes from here. And you get Max Crosby. While your offense is here, your defense is here. Your defense goes to here. Your offense goes to here. You got to pay him. I mean, yes, Max Crosby is a very great pass rusher. But Donovan Izarake, he looked pretty good this year.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily defensive line that needs help. It's your secondary. it is your linebacker. So I don't like the Max Crosby to George Pickens kind of swap whatsoever. And I mean, this is a guy who, by far, had his best year as a pro. When CeeDee Lamb was out with injuries, George Pickens stepped up. And yes, he had some games he didn't play his best. And we saw a different version of George Pickens in that aspect because Pittsburgh George Pickens was like, hey, I don't care. Go ask the quarterback. I'm not getting the ball. Go talk to the quarterback. Leave me alone. I'm doing what I can do. Like, he matured. He faced the media like, hey, I didn't play well this game. He has had conversations with Jerry Jones of like, hey, I didn't play well this game. I wasn't myself. I need to be better. But the production that we saw out of him was the production that we were seeing out of Amari Cooper when Amari Cooper and CD, was in that wide receiver room. If a guy gives you almost 1,500 yards as your wide receiver two, 1,500 yards, 93 receptions, 9 touchdowns as your wide receiver two, which is a wide receiver one stat line for a lot of teams throughout the NFL. Buffalo, for instance, Buffalo fans will probably sacrifice the city for a receiver to give up those type of numbers. Yeah. You don't let him walk out the door. And this offense has always been good with Dak Prescott. We know that. But the offense, second in passing, second in total offense. And George Pickens was a huge part of that, considering when you look at the other receiving options on that team, Ryan Flournoy came a long way later on in the year, but we were relying on Jalen Tolbert and Jake Ferguson and Lou Shoemaker to make plays for this Cowboys offense. And George Pickens took so much pressure off of CeeDee Lamb, off of Dak Prescott, all the rest of the other guys that might be selling tires in the next 6 years because they don't add nothing to the offense. Jerry Jones, and I know we're going to get into it a little later, so I'm going to spoil it here. Your first step of action was re-signing Javonte Williams, where you said, hey, I'm serious about winning. We are about to attain the guys that helped us win last year. Your first one being Javonte Williams being back in the building was step one, showing me, hey, I'm for real. I want a Super Bowl. Jerry Jones, if you are dead serious about a Super Bowl for the Dallas Cowboys, George Pickens will get that $30 million that he's asking for. It's just that simple.
100% agree. And can I also say something about the Max Crosby situation? I just think that'd be a terrible look for Dallas.
Absolutely.
Just the optics. Like, you're going to trade. So this is their plan. They trade Micah Parsons. You then have to trade for Quinnen Williams to try and make up a little bit for the Micah Parsons trade. And then now you're going to trade George Pickens for Max Crosby. That's just a terrible look, because to me, that just shows you and shows Jerry Jones, shows everybody that Jerry Jones is just chasing a mistake. Yeah, he made a mistake and now he's just chasing it. So now you're just going to make dumb moves. Not saying the Quinnen move was dumb, but Quinnen and Max Crosby, and you're going to sacrifice George Pickens for it. Like, that's I'm right there with you. That would be – look, Jerry does a lot of dumb things. That would be near the top of the list. You can even make the case that's even dumber than the Parsons trade to begin with, would be trading for Max Crosby, because Crosby's not Micah Parsons, number one. And number two, you'd be sacrificing George Pickens for it. So you'd be getting worse at receiver, and your edge position would still not be to where it was with Micah Parsons, right? Yeah, you would be – it just wouldn't make any sense. You'd just be losing value again, essentially. So I agree. You can't do that. And I'm right there with you in terms of the $30 million. And during that time, I actually looked up the numbers. And really, out of the guys making $30 million, Pickens is above a lot. I mean, he's probably better than probably all of them, except CeeDee Lamb, Jefferson, and Jamar Chase. Now, I'm not saying he's on the same level of George Pickens, and I'm not being biased, but Garrett Wilson didn't play the full season last year. So, in terms of, like, Garrett Wilson on this list based off of last season's numbers, it doesn't look pretty, but, like, Pickens, definitely better than McLaurin, definitely better than DK, definitely better than A.J. Brown. That's for sure. And, yeah, I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown is up there, too. Like, T. Higgins is just under $30 million. Waddle's just under $30 million. And then you get to, like, the DJ Moores, the Devontae Smiths of the world, and that's kind of your next tier, if you will. But, yeah, I mean, to me, and I wrote down some of these numbers. So you look at Dak Prescott back when he finished second in the MVP voting. I believe it was second, right? I think it was.
Oh yeah, 23. He was
Yeah,
second behind
2023.
Lamar.
Yes. I look back at those numbers and compared them to this year, and they're very similar. And I think a lot of that has to do with George Pickens, especially when CeeDee Lamb missed time. Like you said, we weren't relying on Jalen Tolbert. That's another Jerry move too. The Jalen Tolbert trade last year. Remember that? That was last season, right?
Oh, that was
Or
so
2
Tolbert,
seasons ago now.
Tolbert we drafted. It was
Or no, I'm sorry.
Mingo, who
Yes,
we
Mingo
traded
was
for.
Yes. That you were out of the playoffs and you traded for Jonathan Mingo.
Yeah.
Yes, that was the genius. Yes, my bad. I mixed the two up. Jalen Tolbert. Well, they both do cardio.
Yeah, so they both do the same, and that's absolutely nothing when they're out there.
Yeah, it's just cardio the whole time. Yes, the Jonathan Mingo trade, that was a disaster. It was just so stupid. Like, at that point, he wasn't going to elevate them, and he wasn't going to do anything. Like, why make the trade? So, but all that aside, you look at the numbers, right? CeeDee Lamb last season missed some time, but in those games, George Pickens stepped up big time. And I think a lot of that also has to do with Dak Prescott. Not only did Dak Prescott help Pickens, but Pickens also helped Prescott too. And you look at the numbers from the MVP season in 2023 or the MVP finalist season in 2023 to this past season, they're very similar. He completed 69.5% of his passes for 4,516 yards, 36 touchdowns, 9 picks in 2023. This year, he completed 67.3% of his passes for 4,552 yards, 30 touchdowns, 10 picks. So a little bit less touchdowns. He did have one more interception, but in the same area in terms of interceptions, same vicinity of touchdowns, another 30-plus touchdown season, and he actually threw for more yards this year. Dak did. He finished third. I say all this because Pickens' impact wasn't just felt through just the way he played, but also the benefit it had to Dak Prescott where he had a big season. The benefit it also had to CeeDee Lamb where not all the attention's on CeeDee Lamb. And when CeeDee Lamb missed time, they had a legitimate, not just option, but a number one option behind him. It's almost like 1A, 1B when you look at Pickens and Lamb.
Yes.
You have to give him what he wants. And just, again, go back to the optics. Like, you have the whole Micah Parsons situation where Jerry fought that battle and lost the battle. You don't want to fight this again either if you're Jerry Jones. Like, you just let you traded Micah Parsons because you couldn't agree on a contract. Now you're going to let Pickens walk or try and, just put the franchise tag on him or whatever instead of just giving him the money that he wants. Like, he was a 93 reception, 1,400 yard receiver last year. That's worth $90 million or $30 million. $90 million. I'm a little over myself there, but it's worth $30 million. Yeah. It is. Especially, and I'm actually glad I said I would give him $30 million because when you look at the other names in the $30 million category, you can make the case outside of 2 of them, Pickens is better than, or 3 of them. Because I would still say CeeDee Lamb at his best is better than Pickens when he's healthy, right? Not even health's been a concern for CeeDee Lamb. Just, missed some time last year. And I would still probably throw Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson ahead of him.
Well, I'm glad you said 1A and 1B because it's not like there's one other team that's coming to the top of my head right now where there's a 1A, 1B type of situation, and that is Cincinnati.
Yes.
So this is not like you are getting a glorified wide receiver 2 that just happened to have a phenomenal year and all of a sudden he's like, hey, give me my money. George Pickens was a wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh. And again, up there with the topic of Buffalo and their need of receiver, we talk about Buffalo's offense. Pittsburgh's offense still being in the times of when the first car was ever made. So like when George Pickens was in Pittsburgh, their quarterback play was awful. The offense was awful. So, the numbers are not going to look great. And that's what's going to happen. We talked about it with Tyreek Hill. That's the thing. The receiver, the main thing is your quarterback has to give you the ball. And if your quarterback does not do that, your numbers won't look good. So, you finally, for George Pickens, you have a quarterback, a MVP-level quarterback, an elite top 10 quarterback that can give you the ball. And your numbers skyrocket. And you are so much happier that this one season than you were in Pittsburgh. So I say all that to say, like, this guy, you can call it an outlier year because, yeah, the numbers were so skewed, like, compared to his first three in Pittsburgh, but it's the quarterback play, it's the offensive system. So this is a wide receiver that has willingly came over to be your wide receiver 2 or your wide receiver 1B in this situation unselfishly, and that has kind of put all that narrative that we thought about George Pickens coming into the season on the back burner. And he went out there and he played football games. He brought juice, he brought energy. I mean, he does more than just the production on the field. An example I'm going to use this is the Philly game when they were down 21, and I'm talking about that, and George Pickens is, he's celebrating after a first down catch in the second quarter, down 21, and I'm watching this game, and me and my dad were like, why are you celebrating? Why are you getting up celebrating first downs when you're losing? Like, you can't do anything. But you start to realize as that game goes on, like, he's bringing that juice, he's bringing that energy to a Dallas team that I've watched a long time. Down 14, 17, 20, that game's over. The world, like, the stadium is about to crumble. Everything's about to go bad, and just get ready for the 4:00 games. Like, don't worry about this one no more. Pickens brought a juice, he brought an energy, he brought a swagger to that team that elevated CeeDee Lamb, that elevated the run game, that elevated Dak Prescott, and made Schottenheimer, sorry, Scotty, I'm jumbling your word here, made Scotty look good as a coach, where a lot of the question marks this year was, can he do it? Will the team be good enough? Will the guys rally behind him? And they did. And George Pickens was a huge part of that. I'm right there. I mean, you got to give him that $30 million a year. Jerry Jones, if you don't, that will, I am 100% agreeing with you, will be one of the top 5 dumbest things he has ever done as a GM of the Dallas Cowboys.
100% agree. And to your point about Pittsburgh, because I actually think this would be an interesting study to do one day of, like, receivers to leave Pittsburgh. Well, I really guess it's just now it's really only Pickens, but I know what they do the year after. A lot of people got to take that into account, what he was dealing with the Steelers, the quarterback play, the offense we talk about all the time. I think the Bills and the Steelers might be the 2 most talked about AFC teams, specifically the Steelers, just in terms of their terrible offense. But the reason I bring that up is you look at DK's numbers, they took a dip this year.
They're bad.
I don't think that's a coincidence. And look, he wasn't playing with Kenny Pickett either. He was playing with Aaron Rodgers, who is an upgrade at this point in his career. He's not Aaron Rodgers of old, as we all know. But the point being is that offense, like DK Metcalf in 2024, if he played all 17 with the Seahawks, he would have had 900. He would have had over 1,000 yards. You look at his numbers, though. He played 15 games last year with Seattle, and then he played 15 games this past season with the Steelers. And they're exact same amount of games. You look at the numbers, they're awful. 66 receptions for 992 yards, 5 touchdowns with Seattle. This year, he had under 60 receptions. He even hit 60 receptions, which was the first time since his rookie season back in 2019 that he didn't have over 60. And this was a guy that was a 70-plus, 90-plus reception type of player during some of his better years in Seattle. He had 59 receptions this year for 850 yards in Pittsburgh. Is that a DK issue or is that a Pittsburgh issue? Because we've gone to a point now in Pittsburgh where you see George Pickens have the success he had this year in Dallas. You see DK Metcalf go to Seattle and play like he did, or go to Pittsburgh rather and play like he did. You know, it's a very valid point that you brought up about people want to look at his numbers in Pittsburgh and say, oh, well, I think this is more the player George Pickens is, what we saw this year. Is he this every single year where he's going to be 1,400, 1,500 yards? I don't know.
No, but you don't need that. You have CeeDee Lamb. You don't need it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need it. He can be a 1,100-yard receiver, and that's fine. But he's not – I don't think he's what he was in Pittsburgh, where he only had 2 1,000-yard seasons there, and it was a lot of inconsistency with him.
Yeah.
You also had he kind of gave off like the diva persona too there, which you didn't see that here in Dallas. So they got to pay him. I agree. That's a move they have to make. Do you think they will? What does the gut tell you? Does Jerry Jones make a good move for once?
My gut told me they were signing Micah Parsons back, and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But I think they sign him. If they don't sign him, at least they franchise tag him, which would be kind of dumb because the price is going up next year
Yep.
on George Pickens. So I want to say they sign him. I mean, Dak is going to believe 32, if I'm correct, 31, 32. You only
Yeah.
have so many more years of him. So this is your probably your best window from an offensive side. You know, after those Cooper, Gallup, CD years to win a Super Bowl, you gotta retain your guys and give your quarterback the best shot that he has and win one.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Now speak of an extension. Dallas did reach an extension with another playmaker on their offense, and that was Javonte Williams. Jerry did cook on this one.
Yes.
Got the deal done. Javonte Williams, really from Dallas, this was just just an all-around great move to get him last offseason, bring him in the way he played this season, and now to keep him around and extend him. That's big. So it's a 3-year deal, $16 million guaranteed, worth $24 million. Total deal is worth up to $24 million, includes $6 million signing bonus. Really love this move from the Cowboys. As a Javonte Williams fantasy owner this year, that was a huge plus for me. What are your thoughts on this move?
Yeah, this is a rare occasion of, Jerry Jones going to the thrift store and finding a Louis Vuitton bag. If we're being honest, that's the best way to put it. Again, you mentioned it perfectly. He brought Javonte in kind of just we're gonna bring somebody like the Javonte signing at first felt like we're gonna bring somebody in so the fan base just shuts up. That's all we want to hear. Well, we don't want to hear anything from the fan base. We gave you something. We needed a running back. Here you go. Leave us alone. And it worked out. He was very efficient. He was available. He was ninth in rushing. And it's almost like when you get in that Cowboys offense, your career highs go up. Very similar to George Pickens, his best year as a pro, 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, and he deserves it. I mean, this was a guy, he was very good when he was coming out of North Carolina. Obviously, things didn't work out in Denver for him, but he came over here, and this was when we first signed him. I'm just like, man, Jerry, what are we doing? You're going with the cheap option. Like, you're not trying to seriously win. And it worked out. And that just kind of goes to show you, and, this is something we kind of mentioned when we talk about certain guys. It's just that change of scenery. You leave somewhere and you get somewhere else, new opportunity, fresh faces in the locker room. It brings a new swagger to your play and your play style. And for Javonte Williams, I mean, props to him. I can't remember the last time, honestly, the run game was this good and you can actually lean on it. Tony Pollard did his dues. Zeke obviously with his time, but for once this offense could be more balanced than what it was in previous years. So very happy for Javonte Williams. Very happy that Jerry realized, hey, this guy helped us win football games. So again, just what I said to George Pickens, this was just step one of showing like, hey, we're for real. We need a Super Bowl. We are about to bring back our guys that helped us win. We're about to release our guys that didn't do anything. I say that just because the Logan Wilson move, which we traded for, which kind of just shows me he only played a few games with Dallas. Jerry is serious about trying to win, and this shows it.
Yeah, definitely. To bring him in at kind of the low-cost addition that they had where it was kind of just see what happens. They also obviously drafted Jaden Blue, so it was one of those things where you brought in Javonte Williams. They also had Miles Sanders, who was kind of going into the year, it was, see what the room looks like. I don't think there was extremely high expectations for Javonte Williams. But the way that he played, the way that they got him involved in the offense, I think you give a ton of credit to Brian Schottenheimer for that too. That was huge. I mean, he was used the most he's ever been used in his career, and the numbers pop off the charts. He had, over 1,200 yards, which was 9th in the NFL. He was 8th in touchdowns, 252 carries was 10th. So in terms of a workhorse, in terms of getting the ball, he was top 10 in the league as one of the most utilized backs in the NFL. And that was just huge for the entire offense because there was finally balance. You mentioned some of the years they've had, whether you want to go to Zeke and stuff like that, going back to that. But then they also brought back Zeke, who was washed, which didn't work out. Rico Dowdle, Tony Pollard, like those guys they weren't on the level of what Javonte Williams was able to provide this season. And that was huge. I think it opened up the entire offense. Like we talk about George Pickens, we talk about his success, Dak's success this season. A lot of that also has to do with Javonte Williams and then being a more complete offense, not being as predictable. It really opened things up for Javonte Williams. In terms of, I guess, just like any other moves you see to this offense, or is it kind of run it back in terms of if they keep George Pickens, that being the obvious one?
You got to get some help with the offensive line. I mean, the offensive line is not close to what it used to be, and Dak took some hits. Dak was sacked a decent amount, but also a lot of those numbers could be a lot worse. There's a lot of plays where Dak is just so strong where he's able to absorb some of those hits, throw the ball away, whatever the case is. So I think the offensive line needs a bit of an upgrade. You still need a running back too as well, which some names that's floating out that I've seen for Dallas was Zach Charbonnet being one, Tyler Algier being another one. Really like the Algier move if they decide to go that direction. I think you go there and then you let Ryan Flanoy kind of gel into that wide receiver 3 role. I mean, he was very good when he stepped in and when he stepped up, when CeeDee Lamb missed time, and he moved up to 2, Pickens being your 1. So I just want to see more of that from this team. And you rely on the arm of your quarterback, you rely on the legs of Javonte Williams, and you go out and you win games.
Yeah, 100%. And you don't trade Pickens.
Please don't. It's
yeah.
I will go in
Bring him back.
A darkness retreat if George Pickens is traded or not in the Cowboys uniform next season. I'm just going to tell you that.
Yeah. Pickens, please, for my sake, too. I don't want to see Pickens in Buffalo.
That would get wicked. That would be worst case scenario for a lot of teams out there. I mean, we've talked about
both of us, really.
Hill there. Pickens to Buffalo. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. All right. One final topic here to close out the show today. We'll talk a little bit more running backs here, and that is Breece Hall. Similar to, not really similar to Javonte Williams, but similar to, I should say, George Pickens, franchise tag extension. What did the New York Jets do? It still kind of feels like they're at a crossroads, the Jets, in terms of what they want to do. A lot of reports are coming out that they're contemplating between the transition tag versus the franchise tag, whether or not they want to extend him. You're starting to hear that they are more open to giving him the transition tag as opposed to the franchise tag, which the transition tag a little bit different. That would come for Breece at $11.7 million. The franchise tag for Breece would be around 14. Would be actually around the same in terms of per year. It would be probably like, I think franchise tag would be at $14.54 million for Breece this season. If they want to go that route. The one thing with the transition tag that is it all still gives him the opportunity to speak to other teams. And then whatever other deal another team has, the Jets can then match that or say, no, we're not going to match it. And he goes elsewhere. The fan base has been very split on Breece because there's a portion of the fan base, really it's two sides. It's either you want him back. I guess there's three. There's you want him back, you don't want him back, and then there's people in the middle that really don't care. That's where we've kind of gotten with the Breece Hall experience. I'm in the boat of I'd like him back, and I do want him back. If they don't bring him back, am I going to be distraught and upset? No, but he's still a good player in my opinion. I know he isn't exactly the player that we saw burst onto the scene his rookie year, and he had the injury and the torn ACL, and then last year he was dealing with knee injury and he didn't look right, but he went out there this season and had a productive season. He had his first 1,000-yard season. His yards per carry were back up, which was big because the yards per carry was a massive drop off in 2024. I'm on board with keeping Brees. What are your thoughts on the Brees situation?
That look of frustration you just saw is it's probably big part of my answer. Why do we act like this guy is a scrub? We just had this
I know.
conversation 2 years ago when his numbers was down because they wanted to play Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams ball, and Rodgers being the hero, so the numbers dropped. Everyone's okay. Brees sucks. Get rid of this guy. The numbers go up, and if I'm correct, I think he had his most productive year as terms of yards this past season with still no quarterback play. There was no offensive balance. Teams were loading the box on him. They couldn't even throw the ball 15 yards down the field, and he still found a way to be productive in that offense. Keep Brees Hall. It would
Yeah.
be so dumb to get rid of Brees Hall, especially for Aaron Glenn, who is like already on the hot seat. You're about to go ahead, if you were to hypothetically get rid of your running back. Well, there's only two guys on your offense that I can name at least, and that is Brees Hall and that's Garrett Wilson. So if the Jets' plan is, hey, we're going to get rid of Aaron Glenn this year, then yeah, you get rid of Brees Hall, and that just speeds up the process of getting him out the door. But I don't think this team is in a complete rebuild mode quite yet to the point where you get rid of Brees. You need a quarterback, and this is a tough year because we've talked about it, and I know you deal with it, the stress of it every day, the press, the radio shows, and everything. The direction of quarterback is like, what are we doing right now? And I understand you don't want to waste another year of Brees kind of sitting behind a brick wall, taking snaps or handoffs from a bridge guy, a rookie, whatever the case is. But if you're the Jets, you have a good core. You have a very good running back. Brees is a good back who I think a lot of teams would pick up their phone and call if he's unavailable. If he's available, Kansas City being one of them, which was a team that was interested around the trade deadline. Dallas was another one that just as far as availability with the trade deadline. You look at some of these other teams that may need running backs now. Seattle, who's moving on from K9. So this is a thing for Brees where a lot of teams are going to want you. You're a very good back, and if you were the Jets, I know the running back market is not, extravagant, but you don't great backs like Brees Hall don't grow off trees very frequently. You don't find them that often in the draft, especially if they are that good. It's another thing that they're healthy. So if you're the Jets, man, you got to keep them.
Yeah, I agree. I'm right there with you. Now, I think you were spot on when you basically said, like, we do have to stop acting like he's a scrub. He's a good, solid running back. And I think there's a lot of Jet fans out there, and this is my issue with it, is the whole Brees thing to me, and I understand whether or not he wants to stay here. Like, the way he talks to the media, he's not exactly convincing of, I want to be here. I don't want, like, he's very, like, whatever happens, that kind of stuff. But he's the way he carries himself is a little, I get why it can rub people the wrong way. But here's my thing. Like, why, like, you just mentioned it perfectly. Some of the weapons that they've got on this offense. Why just create an unnecessary hole? That's my whole thing. That's been my whole thing with Brees all along. This team has so many holes on it. They have so many holes. They need another receiver. They desperately need two receivers, really. Two more receivers. Defensive, they need a quarterback. Defensively, they need help at every level. D-line, defense, all on the entire D-line, from interior D-line to defensive end. They need help at linebacker. They need help at safety. They need help at corner. Literally every level of the defense they need help at. So my point to all this is you're just now going to create a hole at running back. So let Brees walk or trade or whatever, transition tag or a tag and trade him. That's what you're going to do. And now all I hear from Jet fans is, you could just draft a running back if it was just that easy. But that's my point, though, is just draft a running back. That pick that could have been used on the linebacker and you keep Brees now has to be used on a running back, and now you're taking away from another position because you created an unnecessary hole at running back. Brees Hall faced the highest stacked box rate in the NFL last year. I'm glad you brought up the quarterbacks. As much as Garrett Wilson's affected by the quarterback play, so is Brees Hall. And the coaching stinks. They're the most predictable run plays possible. And he found a way to have over 1,000 yards. And I still don't think he's being used properly. I still don't think he's been used properly. He can be such a better receiver out of the backfield. They still don't use him enough as a pass catcher out of the backfield. They need to do that more. And that's always been my whole thing with Brees. I think it's more of a coaching thing than it is him in terms of why maybe why maybe he's not like in the elite conversation, if you will, if that makes sense. So I'm all in the business of keeping good players. To me, like this roster lacks a lot of talent. One of their lone talented pieces is Brees Hall. I don't know, keep him. Like, yeah, it's funny. There's some Jet fans that just talk about Brees Hall like he's some terrible running back. He's not, it's like this guy is believe me, there's been some bad Jets running backs that have taken, I mean, come on. It wasn't too long ago we were watching 90-year-old Frank Gore run for this football team.
I mean, I'm about to throw a shot here, but if
Michael Carter, like these stiffs.
Like the way you talk about Brees, I think you made me think Isaiah Pacheco is your running back or something.
I know.
Like,
yeah.
Sorry, Isaiah Pacheco, for the shot, but Brees Hall is a very good running back. Like,
yeah. He's not elite, but he's very good.
But who is elite? There's probably a tier of maybe 3 players that you might consider elite, and 4. Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey,
Gibbs.
Jonathan Taylor probably just edged that this year, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Everyone else is kind of they're just in this circle of just efficient backs. Like there's really not that much.
Would you you don't think Cook's elite, right? That's tough.
That's
After
tough.
this year, I feel like he maybe enters that conversation.
I might have to put him up there. He was very good this year.
Yeah.
So we're talking 5.
Either way, it's still very small. Yeah.
But out of those 5 backs, I mean, what you just mentioned perfectly is what sets them to that standard of elite. It's their pass catching ability. Look how good Bijan and McCaffrey is. Jonathan Taylor in that list is probably the lesser of all those in terms of pass catching, and he's still efficient. So as a running back, Brees is not your traditional hand the ball off 3 times. Like, spread them out. Use them how Bucky Irvin is used. Devon Achane is used. That's how Brees needs to be targeted in the offense. And they don't do that enough, and that is why they struggle so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. They don't use him. He has so much more potential than what they actually use him for. And look, it's the Jets. Are we surprised they don't use the talent on their roster? No. Anyway, any closing thoughts?
So you think Brees stays? I guess I'm wrapping up with that. Is Brees Hall a New York Jet going into next season?
That's tough. Yes. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say they transition tag him and they end up working out a long-term extension. Glenn's been very dead set on wanting to keep him. I think so. I think he will be. But I don't say that with a ton of confidence.
Well, I think so too. I mean, you got to. It's just that simple. You got to.
Yes. No, I agree. And look, if you are going to get rid of him, don't lose him for nothing.
Yeah.
That'd be my next thing. Like, if you don't think you're going to work out a long-term extension with him, tag and trade him. Or don't just let him walk either.
Yeah.
Like, do something. Don't lose him for nothing. That would be my next thing. Like, if you are going to let him go, at least get something for him, whether it's a 4th-round pick, whatever it is. Don't lose him for nothing and just, call it a day. Anyway, any closing thoughts on this Sunday?
Oh, that is all. We will see you guys next week, hopefully with a lot more news, hopefully a George Pickens extension at this time. But as usual, thank you for watching and enjoy your Sunday.
Yes. Appreciate you all for tuning in. We'll be back next week with some more content, Combine Week, so stay tuned for that. And, yes, talk to you soon.